Stop starting your car this way. It's killing your engine. I've seen starters fail in under 20,000 miles. Batteries die twice as fast, and engines ruined before 80,000 miles. All from simple starting mistakes. I'll show you the 13 worst car starting habits, plus a bonus tip at the end that could save you thousands. Let's get to it. Mistake number 13, starting with headlights, AC, and electronics on. You're choking your car before it even breathes. When you start the engine, your battery's job is to spin that starter motor fast enough to fire it up. That's already a heavy load, especially on cold mornings when a battery loses almost half its power. Now, imagine you've also got the headlights blazing, the heater fan blasting, the rear defroster on, the radio playing. Every one of those is stealing power before the engine even turns over. That extra load means the starter spins slower, the engine cranks longer, and your alternator has to work twice as hard to recharge the battery after you start. Over time, that beats up all three: battery, starter, and alternator. I had a guy come in last January swearing his alternator was junk. Turned out, he left his heated seats and defroster on every night. The alternator wasn't the problem, it was him. Here's the right habit. Before you shut the car off, turn off your accessories. That way, the next morning, your battery can put everything it's got into starting the engine. Once it's running, then flip on the heat, lights, and music. It's a small habit that saves hundreds in repairs. And trust me, the next mistake I'm about to tell you about will cost diesel owners a whole lot more. Mistake number 12, ignoring the glow plug light in diesels. If you're doing this, you might as well throw money out the tailpipe. Diesel engines don't light off like gas engines. They rely on compression heat, and in cold weather, they need a little help. This is where glow plugs come in. They preheat the combustion chamber so the fuel ignites cleanly. Every diesel made in the last few decades has a glow plug light on the dash. When you turn the key to on, that light comes on while the plugs heat up. When it goes out, it's ready to start. Skip that wait and crank right away, and you're forcing cold fuel into a cold chamber. That's hard on the plugs, the battery, and the starter. Worse, the engine stumbles, shakes, and dumps unburned fuel into the exhaust. That extra strain shortens the life of your plugs and can foul injectors in a hurry. I had a fleet customer with a row of work trucks. One driver never waited for the light, went through glow plugs twice as often as the rest. Didn't take long for him to change his ways when I showed him the repair bill. Patience pays off here. Wait those few seconds. Your engine will start cleaner, faster, and last longer. And gasoline drivers, you're guilty of the next mistake, and it's one that makes my teeth grind every single morning. Mistake number 11, revving the engine immediately after starting. This one makes me grind my teeth every time I hear it. When you first start your engine, all the oil is sitting in the oil pan. It hasn't reached the crankshaft, bearings, camshafts, or piston walls yet. The oil pump needs a few seconds to build pressure and push that oil through all the passages. If you slam the gas right after the engine fires, you're making dry metal parts move faster before they've got a film of oil on them. That's when you get bearing wear, piston scoring, and premature valve train damage. Consumer reports, ASE guidelines, and just about every manufacturer's owner's manual will tell you, don't rev a cold engine, let it stabilize for a few seconds. In freezing weather, give it a bit longer before you drive off. I once rebuilt a V8 for a guy who loved to clear it out every morning with a quick blip of the throttle. At 70,000 miles, his crank bearings looked like they'd done 200,000. That rebuild cost him thousands, money he could have saved by just letting the oil do its job before getting heavy on the gas. You want your engine to last? Start it, let it idle for 30 seconds, then drive gently until it's up to temperature. Manual drivers, Your next bad habit is chewing up starters faster than you think. Mistake number 10, starting without pressing the clutch. You're making your starter cry for mercy. When you turn the key without pressing the clutch in a manual car, the starter has to spin the engine and the transmission internals. That's a lot of extra weight and resistance, especially if the gearbox oil is thick from cold weather. Pressing the clutch disengages the transmission from the engine. Now the starter only has to spin the engine itself. Less load, faster crank, easier start. It also takes stress off the battery and starter motor, which means both will last longer. Back in the day, some cars wouldn't even let you start without the clutch in. I worked on a '72 Datsun that had been converted to bypass that safety switch. The owner burned through 2 starters in one winter because he always started it in neutral without pressing the clutch. It's such a simple habit: foot on the clutch, key to start, foot off once it's running. Not only will your starter thank you, but you also avoid that rare but ugly surprise when the car lurches forward because you accidentally left it in gear. If you've picked up something useful so far, give this video a like, share it with the guy who keeps skipping this step, and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of these engine-saving tips. And even the best clutch users I know still skip the next step, one that directly starves your engine before it even has a chance to breathe. Mistake number 9, not waiting for fuel pump to prime. You're starving your engine before it even wakes up. Every modern fuel-injected car uses an electric fuel pump to build pressure in the fuel lines before the engine starts. When you turn the key to the on position, the pump hums for a couple seconds to get that pressure ready. If you twist the key straight to start without letting it prime, the engine cranks while the pump is still working. That means your injectors aren't spraying at full pressure, so the engine struggles, cranks longer, and puts extra wear on the starter and battery. This is especially true if the car has been sitting overnight or longer. Fuel pressure drops when it sits. In cold weather, that delay is even worse. I had a Chevy Silverado come into the shop last winter. The owner said it was getting hard to start. Nothing was mechanically wrong. He just never gave the pump time to prime. I showed him, turn the key to on, wait 2 seconds for the hum, then start. Fired up instantly every time after that. Here's the habit: key on, quick pause, then start. It's simple, free, and saves wear on your whole starting system. And speaking of old starting habits, the next mistake is one I still see from folks stuck in the carburetor days, and it's murder on modern ignitions. Mistake number 8, using the wrong key position too long. You're melting your ignition from the inside. On older cars with a traditional key ignition, there's a start position and a run position. The start position powers the starter motor, and the second the engine fires, you're supposed to let the key spring back to run. Hold that key and start after the engine's already running, and you're grinding the starter gear against a spinning flywheel. That chews up the teeth on both parts and overheats the starter solenoid. Do it often enough, and you'll burn up the ignition switch too. I had a '79 F150 come into the shop with a starter that looked like it had been through a meat grinder. The customer thought it was just old age. Nope, he'd been holding the key an extra second or two every single start. That's all it took. On the flip side, some folks don't crank long enough when the engine's cold, which leads to repeated half starts. Also bad for the starter. The sweet spot is knowing when the engine has caught and letting go immediately. If you're not sure your starter solenoid is still healthy, I've got another video that shows the exact signs it's going bad. Click it on screen so you can catch the problem before you get stranded. Because the next mistake, it's one you can't hear, but it's slowly draining the life right out of your battery. Mistake number 7, starting with low battery voltage. This one kills cars quietly and slowly. A weak battery doesn't just make the starter sound lazy, it forces the starter motor to pull more current to do the same job. That extra draw overheats starter windings, cooks solenoids, and strains every cable in the system. Worse, modern cars depend on stable voltage for their electronics. If the voltage drops too low during cranking, the ECU can glitch, sensors can throw false codes, and delicate control modules can take damage. You might not notice right away, but over time, it adds up. Cold weather makes this 10 times worse. A battery loses roughly 30 to 50% of its cranking power when the temperature drops below freezing. That's why so many mystery no-starts show up in my shop in December and January. I had a Subaru come in last winter. The owner thought the alternator was bad because the dash lit up like a Christmas tree. Turned out the battery was so weak that the voltage dipped under 9 volts during cranking, confusing the whole electrical system. The fix is simple. Check your battery at least twice a year. If it's more than 4 to 5 years old, have it load tested. Don't wait for a dead morning to find out it's done. And speaking of old school thinking, the next mistake is straight out of the carburetor days, and it's ruining modern engines. Mistake number 6. Pumping the gas pedal on modern fuel-injected cars. This is not 1975 anymore. Back in the carburetor days, a pump or two on the gas pedal shot extra fuel into the intake to help a cold engine fire up. That made sense then. But with modern fuel injection, your car's computer handles the mixture automatically. No pedal pumping needed. When you pump the pedal on a fuel-injected car, you're just confusing the system. You can flood the engine, washing the thin film of oil off the cylinder walls. That means more friction on startup and extra wear. You're also dumping unburned fuel into the exhaust, which can foul spark plugs, oxygen sensors, and catalytic converters. I had a customer with a late model Toyota Corolla who swore it needed 2 quick pumps every morning. Within 2 years, his O2 sensors failed, and his plugs were coated in soot, all from a habit that stopped being necessary decades ago. The right way? Keep your foot off the gas when starting. Just turn the key or push the button. The computer will take care of the rest, delivering exactly the right amount of fuel for the conditions. Old habits die hard, but this one will kill your engine faster than you think. And the next mistake? Let's just say it's not only bad for your car, it's a favorite move for car thieves. Mistake number 5. Trying to hotwire a modern car. You're not just breaking the law, you're killing the electronics. Back in the old days, you could twist a couple wires together under the dash and fire up a car. It wasn't smart, but it was possible. Modern cars? Different story. They're loaded with immobilizers, transponders, and security modules that talk to the key's chip before the engine will start. If you start ripping wires out or poking around trying to jump the ignition, you're sending unpredictable voltage into circuits that were never meant to see it. That can fry the ECU, blow fuses, melt connectors, and kill the immobilizer system entirely. I've seen more than one late model car turned into a lifeless brick because someone tried to bypass it. I once had to replace the entire wiring harness on a Jeep Wrangler after a botched hot wire attempt. The repair bill? Over $2,500, and the car still had to be reprogrammed before it would run. And it's not just thieves. Sometimes owners lock themselves out or lose their key and think they can just bypass it to get home. Bad idea. If you've lost your key or the ignition's failing, call a locksmith or dealer. It'll cost less than the electrical damage you'll cause trying to do it yourself. The next mistake? It's one even honest drivers make, and it can wreck your car in 1 split second. Mistake number 4. Starting in gear, manual or auto. Starting your car while it's still in gear is one of those mistakes that can go from embarrassing to downright dangerous in an instant. In manual transmission vehicles, if you try to start the engine without pressing the clutch and the gear lever is engaged, the car can lurch forward or backward the moment the starter motor engages. That sudden movement isn't just hard on your drivetrain. It can also send you crashing into another vehicle, a wall, or worse, a person. In automatic vehicles, this issue is less common because of built-in safety features. Most modern automatics require you to be in park, P, or neutral, N, before the starter will even engage. However, in older or faulty models, starting in gear can still happen, and the result is the same sudden, uncontrolled movement. This puts strain on the transmission, starter motor, and engine mounts, as well as increasing the risk of accidents. Even if your car's safety interlock prevents it from starting in gear, forcing it repeatedly can wear down the switch or related components. That means, over time, you might be creating a failure point you didn't have before. The simple rule here? Always ensure the gear lever is in neutral for manual cars with the clutch pressed, or park neutral for automatics before turning the key or pressing the start button. It protects your vehicle's mechanics and, more importantly, the safety of everyone around you. Mistake number 3, jump starting incorrectly. Jump starting seems simple enough: connect some cables, give it a boost, and you're back on the road. But if you do it wrong, you could fry sensitive electronics, cause dangerous sparks, or even make the battery explode. And yes, those horror stories are real. Common mistakes people make when jump starting a car: connecting the cables in the wrong order. This can cause a short circuit or send voltage surges through your electrical system. Letting the clamps touch each other. If the clamps meet while connected to a battery, you're essentially creating a welding arc. Sparks plus battery gas equals bad news. Using damaged or cheap jumper cables, low-quality cables can't handle the current needed and may overheat or melt. Jumping a frozen battery, if it's extremely cold and the battery is frozen, applying current can cause it to crack or even explode. Trying to jump a leaking or damaged battery, acid leaks and sparks are a dangerous mix. Revving the donor car excessively, too much voltage can damage sensitive electronics in both cars. Not letting the dead battery charge for a few minutes. Disconnecting too soon may leave the battery too weak to run on its own. The correct way to jump-start a car: park the cars close but not touching, and turn off both ignitions. Attach the red or positive clamp to the dead battery's positive terminal. Connect the other red clamp to the donor battery's positive terminal. Attach the black or negative clamp to the donor battery's negative terminal. Connect the other black clamp to a metal, unpainted part of the dead car's engine block or chassis, away from the battery. This reduces the risk of sparks near the battery. Start the donor car and let it run for 2 to 5 minutes to charge the dead battery. Try starting the dead car. If it doesn't start, wait a few more minutes before trying again. Remove the cables in reverse order: black from chassis, black from donor, red from dead battery. Let the revived car run for at least 15 to 30 minutes, or drive it around so the alternator can recharge the battery. Mistake number 2, not letting the engine idle for a few seconds after start. A lot of drivers are in a rush. Start the car, throw it in gear, and go. But those first few seconds after starting your engine are critical. Modern cars don't require long warm-ups like older models, but they do need a brief moment to get everything flowing. When you turn the key or push the start button, your oil pump springs into action, pushing motor oil through narrow passages to lubricate the crankshaft, camshaft, bearings, and other moving parts. This process doesn't happen instantly. It takes a few seconds for oil pressure to build up and reach all critical components. If you start driving immediately, especially under load, you're forcing metal parts to grind together with minimal lubrication. Over time, this accelerates wear and tear, increases friction, and can lead to expensive repairs like worn bearings or scored cylinder walls. Temperature also plays a role. In cold weather, oil thickens and takes even longer to circulate. That's why skipping this brief idle period in winter can be especially damaging. Here's the correct approach. Start the car and let it idle for 30 seconds. Watch the oil pressure light. Wait until it goes out before moving. In very cold weather, extend this to 15 to 30 seconds to allow oil to warm and thin out. Drive gently for the first few minutes, avoiding high revs until the engine is up to operating temperature. It's a small habit, but it can dramatically extend your engine's life, and your wallet will thank you later. Mistake number 1. Starting immediately after shutting off. This one might seem harmless, but it's one of the fastest ways to stress out your starter motor, battery, and even your engine's internal components. When you shut your car off, a few important things happen. The oil pressure drops to 0, certain electrical systems power down, and heat begins to build in certain engine parts, known as heat soak. If you try to restart immediately, say within seconds, you're making the starter motor and battery work harder than they should, because they're still recovering from the last crank. Plus, the sudden demand on the electrical system can cause voltage drops that stress sensitive electronics. Another big issue is that heat soak can make the engine harder to start. After shutdown, fuel in the lines can vaporize, especially in hot weather, leading to vapor lock. Restarting right away can mean rough cranking or multiple tries before it fires up, putting unnecessary wear on your ignition system. So what's the better practice? Wait at least 30 seconds to a minute after shutting off before restarting. If the car was running hard, like after highway driving, give it a few minutes to cool down before another start. If you must restart quickly, emergency situations, be aware that the start might be rough and avoid revving immediately. Rushing the process might not kill your car instantly, but do it often enough and you'll be looking at a starter replacement, a weaker battery, or even fuel system headaches much sooner than you'd like. Now that you know how to spot these early car issues, there's one more crucial element you need. In my next video, I'll reveal 9 myths about auto start stop. Click the video on screen to uncover the truth.